Imagine an island, not just any island, but a place where the odds are stacked against the norm. Picture a secluded paradise, far removed from the hustle and bustle of city life. Flora and fauna thrive in abundance. The air carries the scent of the sea and the rustling of leaves. It's an idyllic setting, isn't it? But this island is unique, and not for the reasons you might think. This island is home to 32 men, a number that is not unusual for any community. However, what sets this island apart is the presence of just one woman. Yes, you heard it right. 32 men and one woman. A peculiar social dynamic, wouldn't you agree? Now you might be wondering, how did this situation come about? How did these 32 men and one woman end up together on this isolated island? Well, the answers to these questions are shrouded in mystery, just like the island itself. The social dynamics in such a setting are bound to be unique, to say the least. With such an imbalanced gender ratio, the everyday interactions, the relationships, and the social hierarchy are unlike anything we know from our usual societies. It's an uncharted territory of human behavior and interaction. But amidst this unique social structure, there's an undercurrent of tension. Imagine 32 men and just one woman. The competition is fierce, the stakes are high, and the atmosphere is charged. The tension is palpable, like a coiled spring waiting to unleash its energy. These unusual circumstances breed unusual events. And in this case, they set the stage for a series of chilling incidents. But this balance was soon to be disrupted, setting off a chain of chilling events. The peace of this island was about to be shattered, its tranquility replaced with fear and suspicion. But how and why? Well, that's a story for another scene. The first hint of the impending storm was a life snuffed out too soon. A day like any other on the island took a chilling turn. The tranquility of the morning was shattered by a scream, a cry of horror, echoing through the air. The islanders gathered, their curiosity mingled with a growing sense of dread. And there, in the heart of their paradise, lay one of their own, lifeless. The first murder had taken place, shaking the core of this isolated community. The victim, a man known and loved by many, was now a symbol of an unknown terror. The cause of death was not immediately clear, but the implications were. The islanders were not alone. They were sharing their home with a killer. The shock was palpable, the fear overwhelming. Conversations turned to whispers, eyes darted in suspicion, trust began to crumble. It was as if a dark cloud had descended upon their paradise, casting a long, ominous shadow. The island, once a sanctuary, had now become a hunting ground. The first murder was only the beginning of a deadly pattern. The island, once considered a haven, had now turned into a hunting ground, and the hunter remained elusive, hidden amongst the 32 men. Following the first blood, a chilling series of events unfolded. The days were filled with dread, and the nights reverberated with silent screams. Each sunrise brought with it a new victim, and each sunset, a new layer of fear. The island was trapped in a vicious cycle of death, the echoes of which were felt with every heartbeat of its inhabitants. The murders were not random. Oh no, they were meticulously planned. Each victim was chosen with deliberation, each death a testament to the killer's cunning. The brutality of the killings was matched only by their precision. The murderer was a ghost, a phantom that struck with deadly accuracy and disappeared into the shadows. Attempts were made to catch the killer, to break the pattern. The men, once cordial companions, now viewed each other with suspicion and fear. Trust was a luxury they could no longer afford. The island was gripped by paranoia. Every man a potential killer, every shadow a potential threat. But despite their best efforts, the killer remained a step ahead, always out of reach. The fear was palpable, the tension unbearable. The island was a ticking time bomb, waiting to explode. The men were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting against an enemy they could not see, an enemy that was always watching, always waiting. The situation was dire, the atmosphere heavy with despair. The island had turned into a living nightmare, a game of survival where the stakes were life itself. With the killer still at large, the island was a battlefield, and the war was far from over. With each passing day, the body count rose and hope dwindled. The island was in the grip of a deadly game, a game that had no end in sight. The only question that remained was, who would be the next to fall? In the face of mounting desperation, an investigation was launched. The task at hand was daunting, to say the least. 32 men and 1 woman on an island, and now a string of 11 murders. The island had become a chilling crime scene, with secrets buried deeper than the roots of its palm trees. A glimmer of hope presented itself in the form of an investigation team, tasked to crack open the case and unearth the truth. As the investigators began their daunting task, they found themselves facing a mountain of challenges. The island's isolation, the lack of surveillance, and the absence of any immediate escape routes for the culprit made the case a complex puzzle. Every stone unturned could potentially hide a clue. Every whisper in the wind could hold the key to the mystery. The clues were scarce, and the suspects were many. Each of the remaining island residents held a piece of the puzzle, and yet each was also a potential suspect. The investigators found themselves entangled in a web of deception, with truth and lies merging into an indistinguishable blur. The tension was palpable, the suspense almost unbearable. Discussions around the investigation's progress became a daily routine. The team brainstormed, deliberated, and speculated, trying to piece together the fractured narrative. The island was a jigsaw puzzle, and the investigators were trying to fit the pieces together, one clue at a time. The stakes were high, and so was the pressure. Every new day brought with it the dread of another murder, another life lost. Despite their best efforts, the investigators found themselves running against time. The killer was still at large, their identity shrouded in mystery. The island was a ticking time bomb, and the investigators were racing to defuse it. But as they delved deeper into the case, they found themselves lost in a labyrinth of doubts and uncertainties. However, the solution remained elusive, and the killer, a ghost. Finally, after a harrowing ordeal, the truth revealed itself. The island, once an idyllic paradise, had turned into a chilling theater of death. But as the sun rose on one fateful day, the shadow of suspicion began to clear. The final stages of the investigation were like a whirlwind. The detectives, working tirelessly, started connecting the dots that seemed random at first. The cryptic clues, the odd behaviors of the inhabitants, the peculiar patterns of the murders, everything began to make sense. The net was closing in, and the killer was running out of places to hide. Then came the breakthrough. A crucial piece of evidence, overlooked until now, brought the entire puzzle into focus. It was like a bolt from the blue, shifting the course of the investigation and pointing the finger at the real culprit. The island held its breath, a collective gasp of disbelief echoing through its eerie silence. A hunt ensued, a game of cat and mouse that ended with the capture of the killer. The relief was palpable, like a weight had been lifted off everyone's shoulders. The islanders exhaled, their faces etched with a mix of relief and horror. The nightmare was over, but the memories of it were fresh, like wounds that had just begun to heal. The aftermath of the events was a poignant picture. The island, scarred by the horrors, was trying to reclaim its lost peace. The inhabitants, traumatized by the experience, were trying to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. The echoes of the chilling saga lingered, a grim reminder of the ordeal they had endured. And so, an end came to the chilling saga, leaving behind a scarred island and its traumatized inhabitants. The island would heal, its inhabitants would move on, but the memories of this harrowing chapter would remain, etched in their hearts forever.